How can Jimmy Kimmel live with him? Like, Jimmy Kimmel is a talented guy, and I don't think he's like an evil person or something, but he's made this deal where he just serves power and attacks anybody who challenges power. Like, how can, honestly, how can he look in the mirror and say, I'm doing something honorable? Like, how can he live with himself? How can his wife sleep with him?
Well, it'd be
I mean
it'd be one thing.
He's had a real problem with Elon from the beginning of this thing, but it's like he's in this leftist thought bubble. He is in the most leftist thought bubble available, which is Hollywood.
How did Jimmy Kimmel go from being comedy's rebel to comedy's biggest sellout? Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson didn't just call him out, they exposed him. And once you see how, you won't look at late night the same way again. Jimmy Kimmel once strutted across the late night stage with the swagger of someone who believed he was untouchable, wrapped in laughter, applause, and the comfort of a Hollywood echo chamber. But that illusion cracked when Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson entered the conversation. They didn't come with punchlines or polite rebuttals, they came armed with hard-edged truths. And just like that, Kimmel found himself cornered, not by controversy, but by a reality check, too sharp to ignore. The comedy spotlight dimmed, and the gloves came off.
Other equally is joking about each other indiscriminately. So yeah, I think comedians who, and this is why so much of comedy is not funny today. It's my chief criticism of like late night comedy, which I find unwatchable. I think it's totally unwatchable.
But also contemptible. I mean, they're collaborators.
They're just like the fact checkers, they're guardians.
Joe Rogan didn't tiptoe, he launched straight into the heart of the farce. With his signature no-fluff style, he called out the double standards and spotlighted the circus that late-night television has morphed into. Across from him, Tucker Carlson looked on with the kind of amused satisfaction you'd expect from someone unwrapping a long-awaited gift. Jimmy Kimmel, once the smug master of punchlines, suddenly seemed less like the comedian in charge and more like the butt of the joke. Lost in a moment where the laughter turned from supportive to scathing. This wasn't a playful roasting. This was a cultural collision. Two media heavyweights dismantling a late-night dynasty with surgical precision. No mercy, no spin, just a raw public reckoning that was as brutal as it was overdue. And there was an undeniable sense of poetic justice watching a once untouchable TV figure get unmasked not by coordinated attack, but by two voices who don't even work together, yet instinctively hit the same pressure points. On one side, you've got Joe Rogan, former MMA commentator turned podcast juggernaut, known for speaking with everyone from astrophysicists to conspiracy theorists without a script or filter. On the other, Tucker Carlson, cable news' most disruptive force, who walked away from Fox News and left a gaping hole in its wake. And caught in between, Jimmy Kimmel, flailing like a dad at a music festival trying to seem cool while quoting TikTok jokes from 6 months ago. To call it cringeworthy would be generous. And what makes it worse? The artificiality of it all. Those late-night monologues, filled with carefully crafted zingers, aren't spontaneous bursts of wit, they're the product of joke assembly lines. Behind the scenes, there are teams of writers, cranking out one-liners, producers choreographing the reactions, and warm-up comedians training the studio audience when and how to laugh. Every spontaneous moment is a performance rehearsed to death. This takedown didn't explode onto the scene. It crept in slowly, like a leak in the roof that no one notices until the ceiling caves in. Kimmel's decline didn't begin with outrage, it began with indifference. Tired jokes stitched together by writers running on political autopilot, what was once sharp satire has dulled into emotional venting. Lightly disguised as comedy entertainment that reassures rather than challenges, a balm for Hollywood sensibilities rather than a spark for national conversation. Then came Rogan and Carlson, no script, no coordination, no campaign. They simply reacted to what was already falling apart. Kimmel's one sedgy voice had become background noise. All it took was a spark. Rogan, as always, didn't need a spotlight. Somewhere between a thoughtful rant about psychedelics and a sidebar on foot biomechanics, he dismantled the hollow nature of today's mainstream comedy. He didn't have to drop names. When you describe a has-been clinging to pre-chewed political barbs, everyone fills in the blank. His critique was clean and quiet, like a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. What made it sting was the wariness in his tone, not angry, just fed up. With the phoniness, with the forced grins, with the same predictable punchlines in a world that badly needs honesty, Rogan champions something messier, bolder, and ultimately more human. Comedy without polish. Conversations without handlers. Humor that punches in all directions and refuses to be safe. That's why it resonates. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real.
Wasn't to be a comedian and to do that, but his job is to be he's supposed to be funny, and comedians are supposed to hold people in positions of power accountable.
Suck up
Yeah,
to the people in charge.
exactly.
He's their Praetorian guard.
Yeah,
And it's like the self-hatred he must feel, because he wasn't always, that's my point.
Yeah.
I mean, Colbert has always been a hard partisan, talented guy, but obviously he's not a comedian. But Kimmel was a comedian. Like, how does he, I don't understand
I don't know
how he can sleep.
He might buy into the narrative to the extent that he thinks it's morally wrong to joke about these certain topics.
But it's not just that, he's like pouring hot oil on the peasants.
Jimmy Kimmel still clings to the illusion that tossing out a tired Trump joke passes for bravery. But meanwhile, Joe Rogan is quietly reminding the world what unfiltered honesty actually sounds like. Where Kimmel's comedy feels like a safety, drill choreographed, polished, and aimed at a crowd trained to laugh on Rogan's world is raw, unpredictable, and alive with unscripted thought. If Rogan's podcast is the intellectual Wild West Hope Range, unsanitized, and full of dangerous ideas, then Kimmel's show is the comedy equivalent of a politically correct Disney cruise, sealed tight in corporate approval and hand sanitizer. It's not dangerous, it's not daring, it's designed to soothe. Here's where it really stings. The man mainstream media tried so hard to cancel Rogan, now reaches over 11 million people per episode, and Kimmel, the network's loyal jester, is watching his ratings bleed out like a lifeboat punctured in shark-infested waters. Audiences are making a choice. And it's not hard to see why. Rogan shrugs off criticism in a hoodie and pockets. A $200 million Spotify deal. Kimmel throws barbs in a designer suit and hopes the applause sign still works. The contrast couldn't be louder. One man seeks truth through messy, open dialogue even with a joint in hand. The other delivers pre-approved one-liners with all the energy of a piano player in a hotel lobby. And then there's Tucker. Carlson. Tucker didn't just exit cable news, he scorched the earth behind him. Once the iron-tongued king of primetime, he's now a digital insurgent, broadcasting from a quiet room with nothing but a webcam and unfiltered fury. No FCC. No corporate leash. No handlers whispering from the control booth. Just Tucker, dismantling the system he once dominated, now targeting the frauds, still clinging to late-night fame like it's a lifeline. In one of his viral takedowns, Tucker never mentioned Kimmel by name, he didn't have to. His message cut through late-night's glitzy pretense like a blade through soft cheese. Calm, amused, and deadly. He painted a picture of modern comedy elites as out-of-touch royalty pouring scorn from the castle walls, convinced they're still in touch with the village below. It's absurd when you think about it. Comedians used to be the ones challenging the narrative, poking holes in popular delusions. Now, they parrot them. Kimmel hides behind irony. Tucker walks right through it with a quiet smirk. And the kicker? It works. Because people are tired of being talked down to by millionaires pretending to be rebels. As one commentator put it, if your worldview can't withstand mockery, it probably wasn't worth much to begin with. That's the point. Mockery doesn't just stint, it exposes. And when Kimmel delivers his material like a sedated teleprompter in a Hugo Boss suit, the gap between form and substance is impossible to miss. Tucker didn't just call it out, he exposed it for what it's become. Late-night comedy as sanitized propaganda. Jokes dulled down to meet advertiser approval. Punchlines neutered by focus groups. Hosts who once challenged power now sell flu shots between segments. The revolution has been rebranded Dan not very well. Kimmel, who once wore edgy like a badge, now sounds like he's auditioning to host a CDC fundraiser. Meanwhile, Tucker and Rogan's audiences are exploding. No script, no safety net, and no need to impress the same elite circles that late-night TV still flatters nightly. The brilliance. Rogan and Carlson didn't collaborate. They didn't plan a takedown, they never shared a mic. They simply stood in their own lanes and watched as the house of mirrors collapsed all on its own. They didn't coordinate, they didn't conspire. Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson simply happened to shine their flashlights on the same soft spot in the entertainment world, where Jimmy Kimmel now tap dances in a puddle of his own fading relevance. Rogan chuckled at the spectacle. Tucker dissected it like a surgeon. Together, without ever meeting in the middle, they orchestrated one of the most devastating, unintentional media takedowns in recent memory. And here's the twist of the knife. It didn't have to end like this. Kimmel could have stayed sharp, stayed genuine. But somewhere along the way, he swapped out grit for approval, edge for etiquette. The comedy got dull, the honesty got filtered, and what once felt like satire now just feels like strategy. Even those once skeptical are coming around. Early critics, who thought censorship was just about offensive jokes, now see the bigger picture. It's not the punchlines they're after, it's the power behind them. Humor, it turns out, is one of the most effective delivery systems for truth. And when that truth cuts too close to a fragile narrative, the instinct is to shut it down, not because it's mean, because it's accurate. Kimmel didn't just soften, he surrendered. And now, he's not the one making jokes. He is the joke. Rogan didn't need to mention his name to put him in check, just existing as a reminder of what Kimmel used to be: raw, unpredictable, authentic was enough. Carlson, likewise, didn't bother with direct attacks. He didn't have to. His sheer presence, voice unfiltered and unapologetic, made Kimmel look like a hollowed-out parody of his former self. A middle manager in a blazer pretending the office party isn't falling apart. Around him, the audiences say it all. Rogan's tribe, intellectually curious, fiercely loyal, lifting weights while quoting Carl Jung and sipping mushroom tea. Tucker's base, fired up, digitally savvy, and battle-tested in meme warfare. And Kipmo's half asleep, remote in hand, unsure if they're watching The View or a commercial for allergy medication. It's not a contested say collapse, a cultural faceplant in 4K. One roast delivered with Rogan's dry, slow burn wit like mesquite, smoke drifting through a desert. The other, Tucker's, full throttle verbal flamethrower, sharp, blazing, and aimed squarely at the center of the establishment. Kimmel was caught in the crossfire, blinking awkward. A living please clap moment wrapped in designer threads. While Rogan is off having 3-hour deep dives with astrophysicists about consciousness and the viability of wild pigs taking over rural America, Kimmel sticks to safe gags about Florida and whatever political headline fits into 30 seconds. Tucker, meanwhile, is broadcasting firestorms from what looks like a Cold War bunker. Unfazed and off-leash. What we're witnessing isn't just a shift in taste, it's a revolution in tone. Rogan and Carlson are redefining media without scripts, without studios, and without filters. Kimmel, meanwhile, is clutching onto a format even traditional cable has outgrown. Once, comedy punched up, now Kimmel's just punching the clock. And the kicker: this wasn't a unified assault. There was no secret meeting, no shared strategy, just men standing at polar ends of the political spectrum, united only by a shared target: the synthetic, neutered spectacle that late-night comedy has become. That's not coincidence. That's a signal flare. And if you think Kimmel's current persona is entirely scripted, you'd be wrong. This isn't just a puppet reading someone else's lines. This is Kimmel fully bought into the bubble, once the outrageous co-host of The Man Show, now standing center stage in the most ideologically insulated echo chamber in America, Hollywood. And yes, people remember the old footage, the blackface skits, the edgier bits, the provocations. But what followed wasn't growth, it was retreat. A sharp pivot from risk-taker to rule-follower. He took the hit hand, then sprinted in the opposite direction, doubling down on safe, sanctimonious content that flatters the industry while alienating the audience. And the audience noticed. At first glance, it seemed like just another cultural collision, but what unfolded was something far more telling, without ever planning it. Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson managed to shine a brutal spotlight on a crumbling corner of the entertainment world. And there, caught mid-tap dance in a puddle of his own ego, stood Jimmy Kimmel. Rogan laughed at the absurdity of it. Tucker carved into it with surgical clarity, and together, without a shared stage, without a coordinated plan, they exposed Kimmel's late-night kingdom as a relic of a media age that's losing its grip. What makes it sting most? It was avoidable. Kimmel once had edge, he had timing, he had authenticity. But somewhere along the path, he traded in his instincts for industry approval. He stopped being funny and started being compliant. And now, instead of delivering jokes, he's become one. He could have evolved like Rogan, who never asks for approval, never offers apologies, and thrives on the chaos of uncomfortable conversations. Or like Tucker, who left the safety of cable, only to return stronger, rawer, and more precise than ever, delivering piercing monologues from what might as well be a Cold War bunker. These two couldn't be more different. Rogan, the barefoot philosopher in a hoodie; Tucker, the smirking tactician with tailored syntax. But they didn't need to align. All it took was for them to exist, side by side, as living reminders of what authenticity looks like. And Jimmy He kept performing to an empty room. His jokes, if you can call them that, feel like beige wallpaper with punchlines. Every line seems crafted by a writer's room held hostage by sponsors and scared executives. The result isn't comedy, it's a performance in fear. Watching him deliver another joke about vaccine mandates or Florida politics feels less like satire and more like a PowerPoint presentation at a corporate diversity seminar. The dead-eyed grin says it all. I'm being paid to pretend this is funny. Meanwhile, Rogan is deep in 3-hour conversations about psychedelics, AI ethics, and whether feral hogs could take over Texas. It's long-winded, unscripted, messy, and wildly real. That chaos is his power. People aren't just entertained, they're curious, challenged, and engaged. They come for the content and stay for the unpredictability. Tucker, on the other hand, has become a digital assassin. His monologues are scalpel-sharp and mercilessly focused. No fluff, no laughter, just hard truths dropped like grenades across social media, igniting millions of views with every clip. While Kimmel flails through another monologue like he's reading a shampoo label out loud, Tucker is slicing through narratives with a smirk and a webcam. And the audience shift. It's not subtle, it's seismic. Rogan's listeners are tribal, loyal, and culturally awake people who drink mushroom tea, lift weights, and casually quote evolutionary biology. Tucker's base is weaponized with memes and insight, treating every clip like ammo in the broader culture war. And Kimmel, his viewers are either asleep, confused, or stuck somewhere between reruns and regret. He's not just losing relevance, he's becoming invisible. Worse still, Kimmel didn't fade out gracefully. He went down swinging, mocking average Americans for questioning public narratives, scoffing at dissenters, and ridiculing the very viewers who once tuned in for laughs. It was like watching someone trip over their own arrogance in slow motion. Then he tried to swipe at Rogan, the one figure in media practically immune to cancellation. Predictably, it backfired harder than a failed TikTok trend. The irony is painful. Comedy, at its core, is about truth-telling, about aiming up, not down, about holding the powerful accountable, not aligning with them. A good comedian does what a good journalist often won't, exposes what others are too afraid to say. That's why Rogan and Carlson resonate. They're not auditioning for applause. They're speaking to people who stopped believing in the script. A long time ago, Kimmel used to have that spark. He was brash, risky, occasionally brilliant. But now, his sharpest insults don't even sound like his own, they echo like leftovers from a tired writer's room. You can almost hear the groupthink in the background. Is this joke safe? Will it pass PR? Rogan didn't retaliate with singers. He responded with facts. Calm, measured, and confident. He pointed out the obvious: Kimmel doesn't do the homework. He just performs. He reacts. He reads from the script, unaware that the audience stopped clapping a long time ago. And maybe that's the final punchline. Jimmy Kimmel didn't get taken down by one big scandal. He got outpaced, outclassed, outgrown. Not because he became offensive, but because he became irrelevant. While Rogan and Tucker break new ground with every episode, Kimmel is still playing the old game, one cue card, one applause sign at a time. Spoiler alert, Joe Rogan brings medical researchers, neuroscientists, and policy experts to his mic. Jimmy Kimmel, he's booking actors promoting animated dog movies. That contrast tells you everything you need to know. And let's rewind to the moment Kimmel smugly mocked Tucker Carlson's Fox News exit, grinning like he'd just dropped the final blow. But Tucker didn't fold, he flared. He ditched the studio leash, took his voice online, and built a platform that now outshines anything left of late-night TV. That wasn't a fall. That was a transformation. A phoenix move. And suddenly, Kimmel looked like a toddler trying to posterize LeBronly to get dunked on. Again and again. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Rogan and Carlson cracked the code. They evolved. They took control of their voices in a time when legacy media was still clinging to the script. Rogan started from nothing, a garage, some cheap mics, a couple stoned ideas, and turned it into a cultural empire. Tucker was banished from corporate cable, and in return, became a digital force with no leash, no censors, and more reach than ever. And then there's Kimmel, still out here recycling Trump jokes like it's 2018, reading cue cards as if they hold divine revelation, sitting beneath a cascade of pharmaceutical ads. He's become the visual definition of corporate's eighth comedy karaoke for the politically correct. If comedy is a battlefield, Kimmel is the guy waving the white flag while Rogan and Carlson lob cultural grenades from opposite flanks. The twist: Kimmel thought he was punching up. Instead, he clocked himself in the jaw. A self-inflicted roast that no one asked for but no one can stop watching. He mocked Rogan's dangerous ideas, and Tucker's firing like that would earn him applause. What he got instead? Silence. Not because he wasn't offensive, but because he wasn't relevant. He didn't land punches. He exposed himself as the soft underbelly of what used to be bold comedy. The real lesson. Legacy comedy didn't just fade, it failed. The business model is broken. The edge is gone. And no amount of monologue polish can cover up the fact that no one's listening anymore. The cultural engine that was once late-night TV now sputters like a reliquon. Part nostalgia, 2 parts irrelevance. Rogan and Tucker didn't need a battle plan. Their media revolution was an accident of momentum, 2 cultural titans moving in opposite directions until they collided, cracking the fragile glass of late-night comfort. And there, in the middle of the mess, stood Jimmy Kimmel. Too rehearsed, too safe, too late. Watching him now feels like watching a mime try to scream. Every gesture feels strained. Every joke lands with the thud of a missed cue. Meanwhile, the very people Kimmel used to mock, those messy, unscripted, unfiltered disruptors, are now shaping the narrative. Rogan's audience doesn't just laugh, they lean in. They get it. Tucker's fans don't clap, they repost, remix, and meme it into culture. They don't need a studio band, they're the algorithm. And Kimmel, still smiling through another 5-minute set built from punchlines that poll well with coastal focus groups. Still pretending he's the edgy one, while the real edge left the building years ago. What remains is a cautionary tale in a suit and tie, occasionally interrupted by applause signs and allergy med ads. It's not just that Kimmel is no longer funny, it's that he's no longer needed. And that might be the hardest truth of all. Because Tucker and Rogan didn't destroy him, they didn't even try. They just told the truth. And in a world where truth is dangerous, Kimmel's version, the one neatly packaged before a commercial break, barely makes a dent. It doesn't offend, it doesn't enlighten, it just exists. Politely. POINTLESSLY. So if you're still watching, congratulations. You're witnessing the fall of a format, the twilight of a talk show host who once had teeth, and now barely bites. And hey, if this breakdown made you think, laugh, or wince in secondhand embarrassment, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment below. Because someone has to say it, legacy comedy didn't just get roasted, it got replaced.